Thank you very much. And good morning, everyone. Much appreciated that at this early hour you make your way to the stage here with the two of us. My name is Alex. I'm one of the founders of Wingman Ventures. We're a venture capital fund based here in Zurich, in Switzerland. And we invest in a quite narrow hypothesis, which is the Swiss tech ecosystem. And we invest at a very early stage. Pre-seed stage is what we refer to. And here with me today is Samantha, one of the founders of one of the great companies we have the privilege to team up with. And we're speaking about PET plastic. And I would suggest we maybe start with a quick introduction. Sam, maybe a few words about yourself.
Sure. So I'm Sam. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DePoly. I'm actually originally Canadian, and I started my master's in organic chemistry. Didn't want to end up on the R&D side of things, working in pharmaceuticals, so moved to Switzerland to do my PhD. And yeah, then the company kind of spun out from there, and so I've got a PhD in I guess chemical and chemistry and chemical engineering, but it's on material science.
Awesome. Thank you. Now, PET plastic, DePoly, recycling, lots of buzzwords. We're here. The whole topic is sustainability. Can you specify a little? What are you guys doing at DePoly?
Yeah, so we do depolymerization of post-consumer PET plastic waste back into its main two chemical components. Okay,
wait a second. So depolymerization, explain a little. What exactly are you doing?
Yeah, so if you think of plastic, plastic is made of petrol and oil. So they basically take chemicals and stick them together to make a polymer or a long chain. And what we do is we break up that polymer back into the two main chemical components. So it's kind of like, degrading it or breaking it down without having to use, heat and temperature and these sort of things.
Okay, and how does that work? What is the final product, and how is the process that you use for that?
Yeah, so we get plastic from basically anywhere, and anybody who's willing to give it to us at this stage. And we put it into a chemical reactor, and after the reaction, the two chemicals that come out are called purified terphthallic acid, PTA, and monoethylene glycol, also known as MEG.
Awesome. Now, PET plastic recycling, when you walk into a supermarket nowadays, on every Evian bottle it says 100% recycled. I think even at H&M you can go and shop for a t-shirt, it says 100% recycled materials. The problem is solved, isn't it? So what's the big deal?
It's so easy to look at the problem as solved if you look only at plastic bottles. So if you look at the packaging industry, we produce 50 million tons of just PET packaging, and on the polyester side we produce another 50 million tons, and only of the plastic packaging side 9% is recycled, and this is basically because with mechanical recycling they can't deal with stuff that's dirty, with stuff that has other plastics in it. So if you get a bottle that has a polypropylene layer on it, or there's some PVC, even like a small amount of dust, they can't deal with that, so it gets incinerated. And it's the same with clothing. A lot of it's blended. Shirts are cotton polyester blend. I'm sure there's somebody here wearing a cotton polyester blended shirt. This can't be really recycled. And even microfiber cloths are two mixes of polymers, which cause problems. So the majority of everything just gets incinerated or thrown into landfills.
Okay, wait, so let me summarize. Less than 10% of PET plastic globally is being recycled.
Yep.
Yet, when we walk into our fancy supermarkets, we get the impression that everything we consume is 100% recycled.
Yep.
Okay, and you now suddenly mentioned fabrics, and you mentioned, what was it, mixed stream and uncleaned. Now, DePoly is about PET plastic, or is it more? And can you help a little to break this big topic down? Because we understand now it's a little more complex than just recycling PET.
Yeah, so we wanted to basically deal with everything that the current industry can't deal with, because I mean they recycle the bottles, the clean, clear plastic bottles, really well. But if you think of the cotton polyester blended shirts, the mixed plastics that have some PVC in there, or if you had a salad dressing container or a soap container that you didn't finish, this is just going to get incinerated and it's not going to get mechanically recycled. So that's what we want to do. We want to target the stuff the fractions that end up in incineration centers, the fractions in landfills, and then break those down into the raw materials so that we can sell it to industry and they can make, new virgin quality plastic, but from our waste.
Understood. Now you speak about fractions, but it's the vast majority is correct, right?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Now there's all of these mechanical recycling operations, I understand. And what do they do? Could you explain to us how is today a bottle of Evian being recycled?
So depending on where you are in the world, you'll go to your local, recycling center and drop off all your, let's say, carbonated beverage soda bottles or just water bottles. Those are collected by some person. In Switzerland, it's PET Recycling Schweiz. Everybody knows the blue kind of containers that you go at your local déchetterie to throw them away. These are collected, they're sorted into colors. So they'll have the clears, let's say like the greens and maybe the darker colors because you can't mix these. And then they basically, shred them, wash them, dry them, post-process them. You lose a lot of flake during this because you'll find batches that you just can't use. And then ultimately you get a small portion out that gets more or less melted, and then this gets sold back to industry for repolymerization with virgin PET so that they can have the same, clarity, the same color consistency, CO2 beverage barrier, and other standards that you need for food and beverage and these sort of things.
Interesting. And how often can you do that? If you would just take that one bottle and you would redo that process, how often can you do that? And there's a point in time when you can just not reuse the material anymore. Is that correct? Yeah,
exactly. So you can, in theory, mechanically recycle PET 10 times. But if you think about it, if I get a recycled bottle, and let's say I have some oil that I need to get rid of, I might put that oil in that bottle, and now it's not recyclable. So you went from 10 times to 1 time. Or maybe you put paint in there, like your kids were painting, you needed something to wash brushes in, you can't recycle that anymore because it's now contaminated. So ultimately, while it can be 10 times, it's more or less 1 to 3 times that these bottles actually get recycled.
Crazy. And what happens then? Because, Evian needs new bottles, right?
Yeah, so you ultimately rely on the petrol industry. You have to always have an influx of virgin PET to come in because, people like it. It's a lightweight plastic. There's demand for it, and this demand isn't going away. So they have to rely on virgin to produce new stuff.
And with virgin, you refer to terephthalic acid, out of which we then produce the PET plastic. And that terephthalic acid, it is coming from the oil industry. That's correct.
Exactly.
It's fossil fuel. Okay, interesting. So for me, I don't know if for you guys this is enlightening, but for me it was when I first met Sam 1.5 years ago, and Sam and her 2 co-founders, they told us about this problem, and we thought, well, for a venture fund, this doesn't seem to be the kind of case that we look for. Is it scalable? Is the problem that massive? Isn't it a very niche local problem? Until we dug a little deeper and we understood the dynamics of this industry and really how broken PET plastic is. And so I wanted to, with the dialogue that we had so far, shed a bit of light on that, on the fact that only 10% globally is being recycled today. And that 10% can on average only be recycled 3 to 4 times. And then what kicks in is the oil industry bringing back fresh plastic, and so there is no circularity whatsoever in the PET plastics industry today. And to my understanding, we're also speaking about a lot of other things. You have a lot of other industries and materials that need solving, but we're just focusing today on the PET plastics. Now, take a step back. I mentioned you and your 2 co-founders, so let's go for a joke. There's a Canadian entrepreneur, an Iranian engineer, and a British scientist meeting up in Sion in a snowy valley in Switzerland. Now, it's not the beginning of a joke. It's actually the founding story of DePoly. Tell us a bit, how did it come to that?
It actually is a a really good start of a joke because we met our professor in a bar. I feel like that sort of completes itself. So I had mentioned that I didn't want to go into R&D for pharmaceuticals, so I ran into a professor looking for an organic chemist that wanted to get into material science. Chris had experience in Liverpool and Cambridge as a postdoc running labs, and he was looking for somebody to come and start this lab. And Bardia, as an engineer, was looking to get a PhD, get into some new opportunities, and eventually move into industry. And it just happened that we all started at the same time, and having an academic perspective on the problem was really interesting because this is where we saw a lot of the microplastics are now in humans. There's babies being born with microplastics in it, and a lot of industries were like, yeah, okay, we'll fix it. And we were like, well, that's not a good enough answer. This is an actual problem that needs to be solved now, not in 10 years. So we just figured that we would do it, we'd solve it. And we got the chemistry up in 6 months, and then we started, pitching, and it's been that since.
Amazing. Now, there's so many players in the world trying to solve this problem, and we understood that there's a whole industry that is based on the mechanical recycling process. There's the collection stations. There's this whole value chain that already exists. What is your USP that is so strong that you can actually break into the system that exists already?
Yeah, so we can deal with like the mixed plastics, so PET in the presence of PVC, polypropylene, polyamides, cotton, basically anything that has PET or polyester in it, we can recycle. I like to joke the only thing we haven't recycled is anything that's radioactive, but I feel like that's a really niche market, and we probably won't touch that right away. So that's one of our USPs, but also we operate at room temperature. So we don't add heat, we don't add pressure, so we can save money on energy building a plant and processing all of this. Our aim is to be market value for selling our chemicals. We don't want to sell at a profit. And yeah, it's a super easy, scalable solution. We're not looking at complicated air-free systems like currently exist. We're not adding enzymes, which you have to maintain. So really, we try to be the super easiest, most simple process that you can get, which will help us also with scaling. So yeah.
Amazing. Well, first off, congratulations already on that. So my understanding is you can do mixed stream, you can do dirty plastics, so you don't need the sorting, you don't need the cleaning, and then you can do that at room temperature without a lot of energy and without toxic waste. And the outcome is, remind me, in percentage compared to virgin grade PET plastic that is made from oil, where do you land in terms of the quality?
We're virgin grade.
So you're 100% the same.
Exactly.
So that means, theoretically, if the whole world would evolve around DePoly, we would be in a circular PET plastic economy. Is that true?
Yeah, exactly.
I think, guys, a round of applause for that, please. It's pretty spectacular. No joke, I get goosebumps because it works. It actually works. And now everyone must go crazy when they hear that works. Maybe you can, I know a lot of it is confidential, but maybe you can speak a bit about the type of companies and customers that you're interacting with, different industries, for people to get a flavor in the room of who's gonna start using DePoly first.
Yeah, we have kind of 3 different areas. There's the people who produce PET resin. So if you think of anybody who would source it from the oil industry, there's the people who make fabrics, fibers, and kind of industrial things that you wouldn't necessarily get maybe in a supermarket. There are also the fast fashion brands as well in that, and then the bottling industries. And I think the minimum out of these 3 groups, the revenue was around $1.5 billion last year. And that was during COVID when sales and everything were down. And that's a small player. Some of the other guys are on average doing 20 to 50 billion easily per year, because it's just such a high demand market for these items.
Crazy. And are you allowed to drop some brand names, or is that?
No, I'm sorry, I can't.
Okay, so a big yogurt manufacturer that is not far from Lake of Geneva, is that? Could be
maybe
the case, yeah, or a French sports fashion retail. No, I don't know. Okay, cool. Let's drop that. We have 1 minute left. What's next? So where do you stand? I don't think you have the big plants up and running yet, unfortunately. So no full circularity at this stage. But where do you stand, and what's next to come?
Yeah, so we're doing a seed round. So we are kind of in fundraising mode right now. If anybody's interested, please come talk. And what we're looking for is essentially to raise for the commercial plant, which we will be building. We have a location and everything sorted. And this will get us to market entry. So this is the scale that we can start selling at the tonnage to the big, resin producers, to the big box brands, the blue chip labels, and everybody else in between.
Amazing, fantastic. Thank you so much, Sam, for all the patience with my questions, and thanks for all of you for being here and listening to us. And please come talk to Sam in case you're interested, either as a customer or potential investor in the next round. Thanks very much. Have a wonderful time still.
Thank you.